Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to HerJourney2Self Podcast. My name is Tamara and I am your host. We are finally back for season 4. This season has been long overdue. You know, when I started Her Journey to Self, even when it first started as a vlog, it was all about discovering who I am outside of my insecurities and limiting beliefs. And this journey continues because life continues. 2022 was a difficult year. 2023 has been better, but I'm still walking through a lot of internal things. And honestly, that's the reason why it was so hard to return to the podcast. Of course, there were other life changes and logistical things that were happening too, but a lot of it was emotional and really trying to focus on my mental health. And I kept going back and forth on what season 4 was even going to be about. So last year, I wrote my book, Daily Affirmations for the Soul. And after I released it, I started thinking, this would be great to, walk through this on the podcast for the next season. So that was the plan. And then the podcast just kept getting pushed. So here we are over a year later. And I'm like, does it even make sense anymore? Like, nobody cares. And I told my husband, I said, I think I need to rethink the next season. And he said, no. So I'm going to trust his judgment. And I decided to stick with my original plan and really walk through the season of, writing that book and how affirming myself really has been transformational for my own growth and my own healing. So the very first affirmation that I open the book with is, I affirm myself in truth. So what does that even mean? Affirmations for me were always something cute. It was something, positive that I could do to encourage myself, but I never really took it too seriously. But as I began to grow in my wellness journey, I really wanted to peel back the layers of some of the tools that I used, and I have somewhat become a wellness nerd. But intention is a huge thing for me. I always want to do everything with intention, and affirming myself with empty affirmations just never felt right to me. In my heart, it didn't speak truth. And I've never been the type of person to believe in fake it till you make it. I needed the affirmations that I speak to be rooted in truth. And I found that the way that I affirm myself is not the typical way, which doesn't really surprise me because I've never been typical. But as I began to look at the science behind it, I found that there is something called toxic positivity. And I began to wonder if there truly is a way to affirm yourself that's beneficial to your well-being and your overall mental health. And the best definition that I found is the one from UW Medicine. It says that toxic positivity involves dismissing negative emotions and responding to distress with false reassurances rather than empathy. And that really aligned with me and how I thought and how I showed up for myself, how I affirmed myself, because I don't think that positivity is all sunshine and rainbows and floating on fluffy clouds with no care in the world, but it's truly about acknowledging all of our emotions or circumstances or experiences without allowing them to demean our character or steal our identity. And another great voice in this conversation, who I've mentioned before, is Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's a neuroscientist. She says that even positive affirmations can become toxic. And once I read that, I was like, let me read more. If we say something to ourselves that we do not truly believe, we can experience a disconnect between where we are in life and what expectations we place on ourselves, which can lead to guilt, shame, and a feeling that there is something intrinsically wrong with us. There is essentially a large gap between what we say and what we believe. And this can have a significant impact on our mental well-being. This was such an aha moment for me, because if you sit and think about it, whenever you are struggling, through something and somebody says something just to try to encourage you, but you don't really believe it, you get irritated. You don't want them to say that to you because you don't believe it to be true. And shame is a huge component of this, especially when you feel the disappointment, when you're trying to achieve something, when you're trying to believe something, and day after day, you don't believe it. And it just seems like there's something wrong with you. Like, why? Why can't you get this through your head? And then there's the gratitude part. There are many times when I try to shut down a negative emotion because I feel like I should just focus on all of the positive things in my life, all of the blessings in my life. I keep telling myself, man, I should just be grateful. Why can't I just be grateful for what I have or what I experience? But gratitude doesn't erase all of the problems in your life. It means that in spite of all of the problems in your life or all of the disappointments that you are experiencing, you can still appreciate what's around you, what's in you, the people who are in your life. When it comes to affirming yourself in truth, I always like to lead with this example because I believe it's universal. It's so relatable, and it's the exact example that I give in the book. And it's about beauty. So someone who is struggling with feeling beautiful, you can tell them, recite the affirmation, I am beautiful, every day. Stand in the mirror and say, I am beautiful. Write it on your mirror. Look at it every day and say, I am beautiful. I am beautiful. I am beautiful. But the problem with that is because the idea of beauty, the definition of beauty doesn't come from you. You are creating this war in your mind between what you believe and what you feel you need to believe. You have to get back to the roots. You have to redefine beauty for yourself. And then you have to set an intention. Why is this idea of beauty so important to you? What will it add to your life? Instead of beating yourself into submission with this empty affirmation of I am beautiful, set an intention. I am discovering what beauty means to me. I am committed to finding all the ways that I am beautiful. I think that I am affirmations are great and they can be of some encouragement to you, but you have to dig deeper. You really have to make it personal. You have to get to the root of that negative thought, that thought that keeps speaking to you loud and clear. This is the way that you discover who you are without insecurities, without limiting beliefs, without negative self-talk. One day I realized that I was a shell of toxic thinking and toxic feeling. It seemed like everything I did and everything I said was filtered out of hurt, shame, and pain. Somewhere along the way, my passions became about proving myself or proving the world wrong instead of following God's assignments on my life. And while the intentions were still good, the fruit was produced from the seed of brokenness, which is why nothing seemed enough. Nothing was ever good enough. And the thoughts that entered my mind along the way were still very much abusive. Affirming yourself in truth doesn't hide your thoughts and emotions. It doesn't tuck them away in a box so that you can't see them. It confronts them. It exposes them. And things may get worse before they get better. If you've ever done a detox, you know this to be true. If you've ever gone to therapy, you definitely know this to be true because it causes everything to come to the surface. And this is where healing begins. So thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. I hope you've been encouraged. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Daily Affirmations for the Soul at affirmandflowdaily.com. And remember that your testimony is not for yourself, it's for the world. Coming up next, and I don't even remember what the topic of the video was, but I remember saying a phrase, perfection is really insecurity. It just came to me. It popped up in my head. And as soon as I spoke those words in my mind, I was like, whoa. Her Journey to Self Podcast is produced by 7 Sweet Studios. HerJourney2Self merch has arrived. Show your support and join the movement of purpose, passion, and healing. Get ready to journey and be empowered to share your testimony. Shop now at tamarajmorris.com.